your local video store card.
A comic book in your back pocket.
Games with no tutorials.
Music you had to discover.
And drinking water straight from the hose.
These are the things us millennials remember fondly. We are the Jennings brothers.
Join us after the streetlights come on
as we race our bikes from the top of the hill
right down memory lane.
Exchange those quarters, because this podcast takes tokens.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to This Podcast Takes Tokens. And this week we are talking the Japanese import, Dragon Warrior. Not Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior. Which actually, really, they're one and the same. Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest. They are the same game. Dragon Quest was a hugely popular RPG for the Famicom system in Japan. It was originally released in 1986. This game is, and I think to this day, is the most popular game in Japan, if I recall correctly from my research this week. And it was not released in North America until 1989, and it was released under the moniker of Dragon Warrior, which is what I came to know and love, is Dragon Warrior. Now, Dragon Warrior was released here in the States as Dragon Warrior 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. There was a 5 and I believe a 6 released later, before it officially became known as Dragon Quest on both sides of the ocean. But for today, we're going to talk Dragon Warrior, because it's the one that I know, it's the one that I love. Brian, have you played this game before?
I have, yeah. I didn't realize they went... Did you say up to 3, or was it 4 under the name of Dragon Warrior before it went to Quest?
On the NES, they went up to 4.
Then
they had a 5 and a 6 later that were... Okay. I don't remember what system they were released on. Yep. And I want to say that it was actually 5 and 7, and I think they skipped 6 or something. There's some funny business going on there. I can't find... I mean, I didn't do a whole lot of research on it, but I did come across a mention of one of it skipping a number somewhere. Okay. And I don't remember exactly where it stopped, and I do know that in 2002, I believe, they went ahead and transitioned it back over to Dragon Quest officially for both sides of the release. But before we get too deep into this, I want to ask you a question. And this isn't a question that I want an answer for right now. I just want to put something in the back of your mind, something you can think about. This is completely separate from the game, so I'm not trying to seed an answer for you or anything like that.
Okay.
If it happens to be this game, it happens to be this game. But here's my question for you to think about. Just kind of keep it in the back of your mind, and I'll come back to it at the end of the episode. If you could go back in time and take any one thing to the present with you, money and means of transportation are of no consequence, so you can get anything and bring it back with you. However, it will be taken, so it will not be duplicated. So if you grab, say, a full building and bring it back to the present with you, that building disappears until you reappear into the present. So what thing could you go back in time and take? We'll come back to that at the end.
Okay. That's a wild question to ask.
Yeah, it's a wild question. I just thought I'd put that in. I didn't want to put you on the spot and try and have you answer right now, but I thought maybe I'll put it in the back of your mind and we'll come back to it later. Something will come up. But so we were talking Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, and do you know why this was actually called Dragon Warrior here in North America and not Dragon Quest?
I don't. I can assume because the Japanese back then, they thought that American audiences wouldn't really go for some of the things they had, so I would assume they changed the name to be a more masculine sort of a name for American audiences rather than just Dragon Quest.
I suppose that makes sense, especially whenever you look at the two cover art styles. the Japanese version being a little more anime, or a lot more anime, and we'll get back to that, versus the North American release having a more fantasy. I think I heard somebody equate it to, it looks like it was painted on the side of a van in the 80s. It has that fantasy element to it.
Sure.
But no, actually, the name change was simple. There was a trademark issue. The name Dragon Quest was trademarked in the United States already. It was a D&D style dice board game, and so they couldn't use the name here in the States. They could have, but there was fear of potential legal implications and being they didn't want to be sued, so they thought it would be just easier to change the name on the North American release. And around the early 2000s, that patent on the name expired, and that's whenever they switched it all back over to Dragon Quest. And these games have actually been re-released several times across multiple platforms, so which version of it you play can vary. I personally grew up playing the NES version of it, but this time upon replay, I played the Dragon Quest 1 that's available on the Nintendo eShop for the Switch, which is I think the most recent version of Dragon Quest, because they have made changes to the game over the years. Like, I don't know if you ever played it on the original NES, but
yes,
for example,
I've got a copy
if you
of it that you gave me, actually.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I had a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the original NES version of it, did you play it on the NES this time, or did you play it on the Switch?
This time, yes, I played it on the NES this time. Yep. I did. I've not
so whenever
actually...
you went up to a chest...
And hit the commands and everything, yeah.
Yeah, you have
stairs.
to go through the commands.
Yep.
So if I go, and when I played it on the Switch, I played the latest Dragon Quest version of it, and whenever I walked up to a set of stairs and walked on them, it automatically brought me to the top. Oh. If I walked on up to a chest, it glimmered, and I just struck the A button to interact with it, and it automatically opened it and searched it, or whatever the case may be.
That's so
the
nice.
controls are a little more intuitive. You don't have to go into the menu. You don't have to search the ground. There were little glimmers where things were, so you kind of knew where to go to discover things, except for a few hidden items. But you played it on the original NES, which is what I was planning to do, but I saw that it was on the Nintendo eShop, and the Switch was it just makes it so much easier, because I can sit down and play it and still be with the family. Yep. Yeah. Especially a game like this. This is a very passive game. So how did you feel replaying the game?
Well, so I will say first, I briefly thought about playing it on my phone, because they've got it on, like the iTunes store, or App Store, or whatever. Yep. I almost did that, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to play it on the original hardware. So I ended up doing that. How did I fare in it? Decent. I didn't get super far into it this time, because I started a fresh game, and I went in and I knew I needed to grind up to some different levels, because the enemies get harder on different areas of the map. So I did a lot of level grinding on there. And that took up a lot of my time. I got past, I can't remember what the name of that town is. There's a town, it's like the first town that you go to that's not the main town, that's like kind of up and to the left of the map.
I can't remember any of the names of the towns either.
I got there, and then I had the torch, and I went inside that cave. But that was as far as I actually got playing it. That was on Monday, and I knew that I was not going to be able to have the time to get much further. So I'll be honest, I did some Let's Plays on YouTube to watch a little further into the game.
All right.
Just because it's a game that you need to take your time on, and I just knew for the show to be able to really properly discuss it, I wouldn't be able to get far enough into it to merit
Fair enough.
a big discussion.
Fair enough.
But I enjoyed what I was doing with it, and I've always enjoyed playing it. It's it's a fun game.
Yeah. I've heard this game. Well, obviously, as we all know, this game was the first RPG released on a console of its kind, and that's what they say. I'm not a historian on games. I can't attest to that too much, but I've read that and seen that echoed several times, so I must believe it is true. As the first RPG on a home console. Home console, I think, being the qualifier. There were several RPGs on home computers before that. So yes, the first RPG on a home console, and I was watching a couple of other people discussing this in my preparations, and I can't remember who said it, but I think they put it very well in that it is a simple RPG where you have one antagonist and you face off against one enemy at a time. So they really simplified the RPG genre and boiled it down to its most basic elements. And this game is the perfect introduction to RPGs for somebody that's never played an RPG. And if you enjoyed this game, you will most likely enjoy RPGs. But if you find this game to be a grind or too much of a pain to just walk around and fight the same monsters over and over again, then you're probably not going to like playing an RPG, and this game will cut you out of it pretty quick. With that being said, there is some grinding, but I didn't find the grinding to be too difficult. I found that if I progress through the story, talk to the people, and chase down leads at a reasonable pace, I didn't have to wander around and grind it out too much. Occasionally, I'd be like 10% of the way, 10% away from whatever goal I wanted to hit for like either the next level or gold for a weapon or body set, armor set. And I would just circle the castle a couple times until I got there and go pick up whatever I wanted. But other than that, I didn't find the grind to be unnecessarily long or dull or I didn't find it to be a beating. It was a well-paced, I should say. And as somebody that's played both the now, I guess, the latest release of this game and probably the second release of the game, because Dragon Quest, the original being the first.
Sure.
There is a difference in that grind. The one I played on the Switch, like I said, there wasn't much excessive having to grind around for things. It was pretty well paced to where if I went from objective to objective, I leveled up at a pace that kept up with what was required of me, where I was still punching up ever so slightly at the monsters, but it wasn't impossible to continue on forward. There were definitely points where I would reach a wall and I'd have to back up a little bit. But that's just probably me pushing it a little faster than I would have normally. I sat down and started playing this game on, I believe, Saturday, Sunday night. I can't remember which one. And I played it pretty good that first night. I think I started on Saturday night, and then Sunday night I played the next night a little bit more, and I took a couple nights off of it, and then the last couple nights I played on it a little bit here and there. And then today I took my Switch with me to pick up the kids at school, and I played for like the 30 minutes or whatever I'm waiting for them to come out of school. And I got pretty far. I can get the last shield if I want to, and I'm at the footsteps of the main villain's castle. Like, I've already rescued the princess, returned her back home, and I'm just at the big boss fight is all I really have left. Okay. I think I got I can get one more shield, and I think if I remember correctly, because I got the armor for Erdrick. Is that the name of the...
yeah, that's right.
The guy, Erdrick. Yeah,
Yep.
so I got his armor, but I know the sword I don't think becomes available until you go through the main villain's castle. You discover it in there somewhere. But I can't remember if there was a shield or not. I didn't go on and check out any walkthroughs or maps or anything like that, so this is all purely from my own memory.
Sure.
But yeah, I got pretty far on it, I'd say.
You did. I need to try, I guess, and play the updated version of it. Because I just felt like in the original NES version, I felt like I needed to get in there and really grind up some levels, and I wonder if maybe they adjusted that a little bit. Because I remember if you go down south out of the field, there's like some hills down there at the beginning of the game, and there's some a little bit higher level enemies there that you can fight them, but then you need to go back and heal up and then come back. But that was the other thing. The thing that I had forgotten about when playing this is there's only like one place to save in the game when you on the NES version. I don't know about the updated version, but you have to go and talk to the king to save.
Yeah, every time.
And that's rough.
But eventually you get that you'll earn that spell of, I think in the one I played they call it Zoom, and it'll take you back to the main castle.
Yeah.
And you can just quickly save that way. But like I don't think you unlock that until like level 14 or 15. I'm at level 18 right now.
Okay. So is 20 the cap on that, the level cap?
No, I don't think there was a cap. I think though at 20 you unlock the last of the spells, and if you at that point you're kind of, I want to say at like 20 or 21 you start getting overpowered for even like the main boss. Like at that point, like you just go in and you knock them over pretty easily.
That's one hit kill or something.
Yeah, I know right now I'm walking through and there are only like 3 monsters that I come across that even phase me. Everything else is like 1 or 2 hits, and then the armor heals you up because Eldrick's armor heals you by like 2 every step. So I'll walk away from them, and if they struck me, I'm healing back up immediately. Yeah. So it's very
That's
OP.
incredible.
Yeah.
So I had found because I was told you I ended up watching some Let's Plays on it. One of them that I was watching, this guy was saying that I guess I don't know, somebody somewhere had done like a game wiki about this, you know. Anyway, the name in the original NES version, the name that you pick, like that you choose, if you do a certain combination, it will affect how your stats level up.
Yeah.
Over like the
heard
long
that.
term.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
I don't know the magic behind that, but I've heard that, and I always wondered because I always had such an easy time with the game. If my name shares so many characters with the hero, the past hero, or what is it? Your ancestor hero, Erdrick.
Yeah.
If that has something to do with like, am I getting a little bump because of that? I always wondered because I always put in my name.
Oh, sure. I may have to play it. I'll just put Derek in there and see what happens.
Whenever you play these games, what do you put in as your name? Do you put in your name, or do you use like something else?
Sorry, I've got a gnat flying around here. Let's get rid of that. I use, I just make up a name. Like I'll just come up with some random name. Now,
whatever you're feeling like.
Yeah. Now, more modern games, like when I've played like Fallout or something, I'm just using that because it's super popular right now because of the show. But I remember, so a buddy of mine, he would always put a name in. He had this character he would play in every role-playing game, and his name was Tank Moses. And so he would just build that character in every game, like he was just this guy that was just traveling through different, worlds. So I started kind of doing that, and I had one that was he was Waldorf Salad, so it was like Waldorf salad. He was just like this this I don't know, this lone Ronin or so. I would try to always play like a melee character with him or whatever. But no, these old games, I would just come up with some random name that I thought sounded cool and probably was silly. But yeah, this time I think I don't even remember what I put. It was a random combination of letters again. Like
just let the cat walk.
I'm not even going to guess. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, so I guess I gotta make a correction on something. Last week, whenever we were doing our top 5 NES games, and this was my number 1 pick, I had mentioned that our Aunt Kathy had sent it to me, and I remember getting it in the mail. I think credit was misplaced there, because in my research, I discovered that, did you know this game was free in North America when it came out?
Was this you go ahead and tell me. I think I know what you're talking about here.
Oh, I know what I'm going to say. What do you think it is?
I had heard that if you bought a Nintendo Power subscription, they sent you this game for free.
That is correct. That is
okay.
Correct. This game was included with your Nintendo Power subscription. So she gets partial credit, because she had given me a subscription to Nintendo Power and had kept me signed up for it for, I think, the first 5 or 10 years or for however long. And this was one of the perks of it, was I got a copy of Dragon Warrior for my Nintendo Power subscription, I believe. So I thought that was really cool. I don't know if this is what spurred me to getting a subscription to Nintendo Power from her, or if she had given me one before this. But I do know that it was her that had given me the Nintendo Power subscription, and I believe she funded my subscription for Adventures magazine from Disney as well.
Oh, I remember that. So I remember you bringing that magazine over. Yeah. I think I got a subscription to that because you had brought it over and I liked it. And
it was fun.
And I had a subscription to Nintendo Power for a while. Now, it was well after this. I think it was like the
1 or 2 at this point.
Yeah. It was probably like the Nintendo 64 years or something. But that was a great magazine. She still has.
Yes.
I think she has every issue of that
Oh,
still.
Man.
Yes. Last I saw it, it was like a complete collection on a bookshelf. And it is phenomenal that she still has all this. I want to go over there sometime and just look through some of those old ones.
Yes, that would be. That's interesting. That would be a lot of fun. So that was I thought that was a fun little fact. I didn't realize that it was. That was the first I've heard of it. That it was a free game with the Nintendo Power, even though. Now I wonder if that counts towards their total sales, because I know there were only 500,000 copies released in North America, or sold in North America, or something like that for the NES. So I don't know if those count towards that number or not. But it was the release was very lackluster. It did not do that well upon initial release in North America. Being a hugely successful game in Japan, I believe they were expecting a little more, but I don't think North American audiences were necessarily ready for this type of game. Or maybe, I think at that point the first Final Fantasy had already come out, and I know we had Ultra and a couple other RPG games on the NES that were released. So maybe this game, being a more simple version of the RPG, just felt like too much of a kid's game for the North American audience, perhaps. I'm not going to pretend to speculate, because I had the game and I enjoyed the game. And I didn't play any of those other games until I got much older, so poo-poo at anybody else that feels any different.
I kind of tend to agree with you on that statement, though, because Like when I look at Dragon Quest now, like I still kind of look at it because they always feature those blue slimes in every ad for it, and I'm like, gosh, this looks like something that my 7-year-old would play. And I'm like, if you're wanting to like attract some more, a broader audience, maybe you should show it, show one of the dragons or something. I don't know, but that's the thing. Like, I think that I've never been to Japan. I don't know anybody from Japan, but just from what I gather from just pop culture and, watching TV or whatever, I feel like the Japanese people really like cutesy things. They've got Hello Kitty and, all that stuff. I feel like they like cutesy things, and so that's how they advertise these games.
I think there's a name for it too. I want to say it's like Kwai or something like that. And it's all about like the slightly oversized eyes and just like the cherub-like features. So there's definitely it's a thing for sure. You're right. And actually, that'll bring me into my next kind of tangent on this game, if you will. There's in that there is a rich history with the style and creation of this game. This game has countless sequels and spin-offs and other variations that I'm not going to get into details here. I was going to play the latest version on the Switch as well. There's a demo for it on the Switch, and I downloaded the demo, and I was going to give that a shot and just kind of have a little comparison, but I got so wrapped up in the first game I never did. So I'm going to focus mainly on the first one, and
I can give you a little insight on it because I did play like 30 minutes of that one. But anyway, you continue on.
We'll circle back to that. Yeah. I know I played one before, and anyways, so I know that continuity-wise, they're not really connected. And from what I've researched, there's like at least 3 veins of continuity going on. It's more convoluted than Zelda in that the first 3 are like the original trilogy. You have 1, and then 2 is supposed to be a direct sequel to 1. And then 3 is actually a prequel to 1. So the chronological order would be 3, 1, 2, with 4 then starting an entire new world and backstory and everything. And then 5 and 6, again, 5 being a sequel to 4, and then 6 is supposed to be a prequel to 4, I believe is the way it goes. And that's a whole separate continuity. And then you have all the rest of them that all kind of have different continuities. And then I believe there's a couple of them that tie back into the first trilogy loosely. And then it's a big mess. And so if you're looking for continuity, you're not really going to find it in this game. But I think this is, again, one of those things that, like, somebody else put it pretty well, and I'm going to echo that statement, and that is, this is a game series that you can just jump into any game and pick up and play and not have to worry about a history. That's par for the course, I feel like, for most Japanese role-playing games. You look at the Final Fantasy Final Fantasy is kind of the same. There's no continuity between them. Yeah. I've never played like much
a few
of them.
A few of them they'll have like direct sequels to previous ones and things like that. But
and that's where you get like the Final Fantasy X Part 2 or something like that.
Yeah. And then they've got the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that's a sequel to the remake that came out a couple of years ago. And I've got some friends that are big into Final Fantasy. I've played a few of them. They're okay, but I'm not like a diehard fan of them.
Yeah, they're massive. I know I played 7 back in the day, and that thing was like 4 or 5 discs long on the PlayStation.
It was 3, but it was a big game. It was
3, yeah. It was a big game. It was big. Yeah. It was big. The biggest game I think I've ever played.
Yes,
at the time, and I didn't. I enjoyed it, but I didn't play it. I think I got distracted by life before I got a chance to play very far into that game.
Yeah.
And then other new games came along, and you play new things. But yeah, I never really. I played the first one on the NES. That one was fun. That's a lot closer to these Dragon Quest games, I feel like, and I enjoyed those. I think I really like this overview 8-bit, 16-bit style of an RPG, as opposed to like the newer ones that are in the 3D environment and you got like monsters walking around and all that other stuff. I feel like they're too big at that point. Yeah. I feel like, and the game, it really should be something that you can sit down and play and beat in a couple weeks of afternoons, not months on end. I want to be able to move on to whatever the next game is.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Like especially having a family and stuff now, it's like my time to play games is so limited anyway, and I want to be able to play more than one game in a year. you know,
I can't sit down and do a 20-hour marathon of a game anymore. It just doesn't happen. I don't have the time for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, speaking of, we were talking about the art style and everything, and there's a lot that went into the development of Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, as far as like where it came from, and I don't have enough information to dive too deep into that, but I will highlight 3 people, and that is, and forgive me if my pronunciation on these names is off, but Akira Toriyama, who was the artist and character designer. He was also, and this is where you're going to start seeing similarities, the artist and character designer for Dragon Ball. I think he created Dragon Ball. And so that's why if you look at the Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest art and Dragon Ball art, like the original Dragon Ball art, you'll see that they look very similar. And in fact, the characters are almost identical in some cases. So, yes, he created Dragon Ball, and he was also the creator and designer of all the characters for the Dragon Quest series. So you'll see that manga style between the two of them. Mm-hmm. And he also worked on several other games, including Chrono Trigger, which is another RPG game.
Fantastic
that
game.
Is probably in the top 3 or 4 of RPG games for most people. Unfortunately, or fortunately enough, depending on how you look at it, or maybe not fortunately enough, but definitely unfortunately enough, he passed away March 1st of this year, 2024, in his sleep, quietly and peacefully. He was 68 years old. So that's Akira Toriyama. Akira Toriyama is the artist, designer. Then we have I had these names pronounced earlier. Yuji Horii. Yuji Horii. Y-U-J-I. Yuji Horii.
Sure.
Who, after winning a game design a game design contest sponsored by Enix before they were Square Enix, Yori won this game design contest and discovered a passion for video game design, and afterwards was pursued by Enix for a job developing video games and started working on what would become the Dragon Quest series. Then we have Koichi Sugiyama. Koichi Sugiyama. He was a highly celebrated conductor and composer, and this is probably my favorite part of the game. Being him being a fan of games himself, specifically wanted to work with the aforementioned designers and Enix on some of their upcoming games. And so whenever Enix approached him about composing the score for some games, he was more than thrilled and came on board and has been composing music for Enix ever since. Until his passing. I think he passed away in 2017, I believe.
Okay.
He did pass away. I don't remember exactly when. It was a while ago. And anyway, so that rich classical sound that has become a mainstay for RPG genres, really, is thanks in no small part to Sugiyama's contributions as a composer and conductor. So yeah, those are three people that I wanted to highlight that really helped develop this game and bring it into what we know and love. That music is, I still hear that music. That music sticks with you. This game had some of the best music from the NES period. You played it recently. You recall the music, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was playing it, and Harper was sitting on the couch, and she was, doing something on her iPad or whatever, and she stopped, like unsolicited from me. She stopped what she was doing. She put her iPad down, and she said, "I really like that music." And I said, "The music on this game that I'm playing?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "I do too." And she's like, "It's really good." Music. And then she picked her iPad back up and went to play. But yeah, it's great.
It is.
It's great. I love that. Beat. I think it's that 8-bit music and the 16-bit music and stuff like that. There's a reason that stuff is still popular today. It's almost the constraints you have and the simplicity that's in that, and trying to make something complex out of something that is so simple.
MIDI-tones.
Yes. Yeah. And it is just, oh gosh, I can never get enough of that. So sometimes I'll just be like at work, and I'll be working away, and I'll have, like some 8-bit tracks or something on just to listen to while I'm going. And, yeah. I need to add this to my list. Sure.
Yeah. They actually, I know in Japan, they pressed the Dragon Warrior games are pressed as albums, musical albums that you could purchase as vinyl back in the day. I don't know if they still do them, but I remember coming across that in my research that they were pressed as vinyl records that you could purchase and listen to separate from the game, which is cool.
They still do it today. Yeah.
Oh yeah, somebody's got to be doing it at the very least.
Vinyls are just
MP3 it.
Well, there's a game. It's a role-playing game that I played recently that I really, really enjoyed. It's an indie title called Sea of Stars, and they ended up that music is like that 16-bit style music, because the game is very reminiscent of like Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana and stuff like that. And they ended up just, I think, a couple months ago releasing that. They pressed it into a vinyl, and they've released it, and they've been selling it. So yeah, people eat that stuff up. It's great.
Yeah, vinyl's back, baby.
It is. It sure is.
Yes. Well, I think that concludes most of my thoughts on the game. Do you have any closing thoughts on this game?
Not really more than what I've said. Like I enjoyed playing through it again. It's not a game that I think I would. It's not one that I'd go through and play. Like I gotta play this every year. I have a couple of those titles that I try to do that with. But it's one that I'm glad we came back around to it. I'm glad I played through it some, even though I didn't, get super far into it. Like I was telling you earlier, I will kind of run back around to. I did play about a half hour of the newest one. I think is Dragon Quest.
Oh, yes.
11 or something.
11. Yeah.
And it's more like the new Final Fantasies. Like you can see the enemies coming. Yeah, you can see the enemies coming. They're not really, there's not like random battles, but then it you go up and touch an enemy, and then you kind of zoom in, and you're fighting, and you're running around in kind of this circle, and it's kind of nice. They set it up where you can either choose that style of combat, or you can do kind of the more one-on-one sort of turn-based battles.
Yes, turn-based.
But it looks really good. Like, it's still that cutesy style of art, but it looks really good. Like, it's almost cell shaded. So I did really like the art style on it. And then the other thing that I thought was neat, they give you the option. You can switch it out at any time. Well, maybe not any time. There may be certain sections. But when you start the game, you can choose 3D mode or classic 2D mode. So it'll look like the original Dragon Quest games. I didn't try that mode out. I just did it in the 3D mode.
Interesting.
But, yeah. It's Dragon Quest, It's the first role-playing game I ever played, and it got me into trying different ones out and enjoying the genre. It's not my favorite genre, but I do like role-playing games, and I don't think I ever would have tried them out if I hadn't played Dragon Warrior. So kudos to it for that.
I gotta say, I don't think I would have either. I know. So, have you played any of the other NES versions as well, like the 2, 3, or 4?
I haven't.
Okay, well, I recommend 2. I've played 2 and 3, and 2 is a lot. It's the direct sequel to 1. So it's very similar, except you are now a descendant of the character you played in the first game.
Okay.
And so the world is very similar, but there's new towns and new people, and some things are kind of moved around just a little bit. And you do party mode, so you'll collect a couple of different characters, and you'll play, like, I think 3, maybe 4. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4, because I might be getting 2 and 3 mixed up. But you play with like 3 or 4, up to 3 or 4 different characters, and you do the turn-based party battles. So it takes 1 and it raises it up a notch as far as like the gameplay and mechanics and everything. And there's a little bit more to it. You instead of whenever you buy a new set of armor, selling out the old one, now you can pass it down to one of the other characters, so that it serves another purpose. But the second one, if you enjoyed the first one, the second one was a lot of fun as well. It's available on mobile as a download. It's as Dragon Quest 2, and I believe it's probably in the Nintendo shop as well with the first one. But you will be hard pressed to find a reasonably priced copy of the NES game. They go for like, I want to say like around $70 a pop on the 2s, and the 3s. The 4s I think are the most at, like, I want to say those go like 150, 200 a piece. Just because there were fewer releases of those games than there were the first one. But so if you enjoyed the first one, check out the second one. It's been re-released so many times you can find a version of it somewhere. But that was Dragon Quest. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That was one of my favorite games growing up. Before we sign out, I'm going to bring you back to your question. If you could travel back in time and pick up any one thing and bring it back with you, what would that one thing be and why?
So I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit.
Okay.
I've been thinking about this. So I'm going to pick up something that has multiple copies of it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick up Action Comics #1, the first appearance of Superman. And I am going to get that thing graded,
Retire.
and retire. That's what I'm gonna
That's
do.
a good call. That's an excellent call.
Yes.
Yes, I think I'm gonna agree with you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go back and get myself a copy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call.
So what brought this question up?
Oh, I just thought it'd be fun to throw in a question, just to kind of break things up and
I like it.
give you something to think about. Make it
Yeah.
make it a little different.
Sure.
Yeah.
So did you think of something, or was there anything you thought of?
No, I was trying to think of things like I would go back and maybe get obviously you were talking time travel, you got to go back and get a DeLorean, but you're limited to one thing, so you don't want to waste it on a DeLorean. Do I go back and get something of monetary value? Do I go back and get something of emotional value? Where do you really want to go? And I think ultimately I think I'm with you. I would go back and get something of monetary value, but maybe not. I mean, the Action Comics #1, that's a pretty good one. Maybe a signed Babe Ruth, something along those lines, could be very valuable. But really, I think I would enjoy just being in the different time period as much as, probably more than the actual item itself. The experience of something new and something different. We don't get to experience new and different quite that often. So whenever we do, it's worthwhile for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, you look at, so there's a Facebook page that I follow that's ran by some people in our community, and it's like a remember when thing, and they're constantly throughout the week, people are posting old photos of just areas around town and things like that. And it's fun to look at those and be like, oh man, this is what that looked like, back in 1920. And I can't, so you get that crazy, nostalgic feeling, even though you've never been there. You've been there, but you've never been there at that point in time. Yes. I can just imagine if you traveled back to then, you would have that feeling, but just tenfold, because you're actually in it. I don't know.
All right, I think you inspired me. Action Comics #1, but I'm going back to New York City Times Squares to buy my copy.
There you go.
Experience that 100 years ago, or what was it? It wasn't 100 years. Was it 100 years ago for Action Comics? No.
Was
it? 75?
Man, I can't remember.
It's close. I mean, let's see here.
It's coming up. It is definitely coming up within the next, I think it was 30. I'm going to guess while you're looking it up. I'm going to say it was 1938.
1938?
Are you serious?
Yeah. It was 1938, April 18th, 1938. That was a good guess.
Wow. I had to have heard that somewhere. That's crazy.
That's incredible. Man,
that'd be an experience. I've never been to New York, but I would imagine that it would look vastly different than it does now.
Yeah. I like, if you go on YouTube, you can find people have taken old silent film from the people have shot of 8mm film of the area and restored it in 4K, taken the individual cells, scanned them, cleaned them up, color corrected them, the whole nine, just made them look beautiful and crisp. And so it's almost like you're walking back in time when you go back and watch those movies. It's incredible. It's incredible to go look at.
Yeah. I'll check that out. All right. Well, next week. Do you know what we're doing?
Oh, yeah. What you got picked for next week?
We're going to talk about one of my favorite television shows of all time. Say what you want about it. I don't care. I love it. It's Lost.
Home Improvement? Oh, Lost.
Home Improvement was good too. I guess we could talk about that.
Nah.
No, we're going to talk about Lost. gosh, just, I don't know. I could say a lot about it, and I'm going to wait till next week to say a lot about it. But
That's
one of my
a good
favorite
call.
shows. And yeah, hope you can join us. With that, we've reached another checkpoint, my friends. Remember that sharing is caring. Yes, and reviews help us a lot. So please leave us a review if you can. So till next time, be kind and rewind. Thanks for listening.
See y'all around.
This Podcast Takes Tokens is a Clay Street production.